In this chapter, we're going to explore the art and science of data visualization. For anyone working with data, the analysis itself is really only half the battle. Communicating what you've found, well, that's where the real impact happens. So we're going to dive into the key principles that can take a simple chart and turn it into a powerful, compelling story, transforming raw numbers into genuine insight.
So here's our game plan. We're going to build up our visual toolkit by covering 5 key areas. We'll start with the absolute basics. What's the goal of our visualization in the first place? Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of choosing the right scale, handling massive data sets, and designing charts that make comparisons just pop. And we'll finish up by looking at how to add powerful context, which is what really makes a visualization tell a memorable story.
All right, let's jump right into our first principle. Before we even think about what kind of chart to use or what colors to pick, we have to start with the single most important question. What is the one core message that we are trying to communicate?
I want you to think of this as your North Star for data visualization. Seriously, every single decision you make from here on out, the chart type, the scales, the labels, everything, it all has to serve this one purpose: to make the story in your data as clear and as intuitive as possible for your audience. Okay, let's get into our first set of tools, choosing the right scale. It is absolutely amazing how a simple tweak to a plot's axes can completely change our interpretation, often revealing hidden patterns in the data that were totally invisible before.
So take a look at this histogram of housing prices in San Francisco. On the left, you see a few super expensive homes. Those are the outliers. And they stretch the x-axis so far out that most of the data gets completely squished into that far left corner. We can't see a thing. But now look at what happens on the right. Just by clipping the axis to focus on the majority of the data, homes under $2 million, we get to fill the data region. And boom, suddenly, the true shape of the distribution comes to life. We can clearly see it skew, and we can even spot a smaller secondary peak that was completely hidden before.
This brings up a classic debate. Should your axes always start at 0? Well, the answer is, it depends. Look at the scatter plot showing dog longevity versus height. On the left, the axes are zoomed in on the actual range of the data. Now compare that to the plot on the right, which forces both axes to start at 0. See all that empty white space in the bottom left corner? It adds 0 information. All it does is squish the data points together, making that negative relationship between height and lifespan much, much harder to see. So for scatter plots, focusing the axes is often the way to go.
But, and this is a big but, that rule completely flips when we're talking about bar charts. For bar charts, starting the axis at 0 is pretty much non-negotiable. The chart on the left starts at 0, and it gives us an honest picture. Smaller dogs tend to live a little longer than larger dogs. Okay, now look at the chart on the right, where the axis starts at 7 years. This is a classic, misleading visualization trick. It dramatically exaggerates the difference, making it look like small dogs live almost twice as long. The key here is that for bar charts, our brain perceives the length of the bar as the value. For that to be accurate, you have to start at 0.
But what if just clipping the axis isn't enough? For really skewed data, like those house prices, we need a more powerful tool: transformation. The top plot shows that long right tail we saw before. But in the bottom plot, we've applied a log transformation to the prices. And just look at the difference. It's incredible. This technique just tames that skew, turning the data into this much more symmetric, almost bell-shaped curve. And why does that matter? Well, now we can easily see the center of the market, identifying that main peak around $700,000, and even that smaller one around $350,000.
So we've talked about dealing with outliers, but what happens when you have the complete opposite problem? Not too few points, but way, way too many. Let's explore some techniques for managing plots with tens of thousands of data points and see how we can find the signal hiding in all that noise.
This scatter plot shows the race times for over 70,000 runners, plotted against their age. And, well, as you can see, it's pretty much a giant, solid blob of blue. This is a classic problem in visualization called overplotting, where the sheer number of data points just stacks up and completely hides any patterns underneath.
Yeah, overplotting is a huge barrier to actually getting any insight. Because all the points are just piled on top of each other, we have no idea where the data is most dense or how race times really change with age. So the solution is to kind of shift our thinking. Instead of trying to plot every single point, we need to find ways to visualize the data in aggregate.
And here are 2 fantastic solutions to that problem. On the left, we have a hexbin plot. It basically works by dividing the whole chart into little hexagons and then coloring each one based on how many data points are inside it. The darker the hexagon, the more runners.
Then on the right is something called a 2D kernel density plot, or a KDE. The absolute best way to think about this is like a topographical map for your data. The contour lines show areas of higher and higher density. Both of these methods just instantly cut through the noise and show us the key insight. The biggest cluster of runners are between 25 and 40 years old, finishing at about 5,000 seconds.
Another really powerful technique is to just plot the average trend. So in this chart, we've grouped all those runners into 5-year age bins, and then simply plotted the average race time for each group. This simple act transforms that messy cloud of points into a single clean line. And now, the relationship is perfectly clear. Performance is pretty flat from age 25 to 40, and after that, average race times start to steadily climb.
This brings us to another really core idea. A good visualization has to make it easy for the viewer to make the intended comparison. You can have the exact same data, but depending on how you present it, you can either completely hide the key message or make it jump right off the page.
Let's take a look at this chart. It shows median weekly earnings by education level, with separate panels for men and women. Now, this chart does an okay job of showing one thing. For both groups, earnings go up with education. But what if the real story here is the earnings gap between men and women at each education level? Well, this chart makes that comparison really hard. It forces your eyes to jump back and forth between the two panels, trying to judge the difference.
Okay, so here's an improvement. A grouped bar chart. By putting the bars for men and women right next to each other, we've made that gender comparison much easier to see. This is a big step up, because the things we want to compare are now adjacent, but we can still do better.
And this final version just perfectly illustrates the power of alignment. By switching to a line plot, we're tapping into our natural ability to judge position along a common scale. Our eyes can instantly and accurately see the vertical distance between the blue line and the orange line at every single point. The core message is now impossible to miss. Not only do men earn more at every level of education, but that earnings gap actually gets wider as education increases. This plot is just so much more effective because it's designed to emphasize the most important comparison in the data.
You know, this choice between chart types is so critical because it plugs directly into how our brains process visual information. Look at these two charts. They show the exact same data, the proportion of houses by number of bedrooms. The pie chart on the left forces you to compare the angles of those slices. The bar chart on the right asks you to compare the lengths of the bars. Well, decades of research have proven that we humans are way better at judging lengths than we are at judging angles. And for that reason, the bar chart is almost always a more effective and less ambiguous way to show proportions.
And finally, let's get to our last, and you could argue most important principle. A truly great visualization doesn't just show data, it tells a complete, standalone story. And that story is told by strategically adding layers of context that guide the viewer right to the key insight.
So on this slide, we have the 100-meter sprint times for the world's fastest men since 1968. The raw data is all here. We can even see a general downward trend. But as a piece of communication, it's just not there yet. Right now, it's just a bunch of dots. It doesn't have a story.
So how do we do it? How do we take this simple plot and turn it into a compelling narrative? What are the layers of information we can add to guide the viewer and make the takeaways truly stick?
And here it is, the final publication-ready version. The difference is just night and day. A strong title immediately tells us the main story. No one is coming close to Usain Bolt's best time. A simple reference line at the 10-second mark gives us crucial context. And most importantly, direct annotations right on the plot point out key moments in history. Jim Hines first breaking that 10-second barrier, and Usain Bolt setting his unbelievable world records. And this brings us to our ultimate takeaway. An effective visualization doesn't just show data, it explains it. It uses every element, titles, labels, lines, text, to tell a clear, compelling, and memorable story. By combining all these principles, we can move from just plotting data to truly communicating insights.